Good evening, and welcome to this session of Tuesday's Encounter in New York. This program is presented every Tuesday at 7 p.m. New York time. My name is Mark Beecher, and I'll be your host today. Our guest tonight is Vikash Vik Shivdasani from from Sedona, Arizona. Vik is a lecturer, energy healer, and author. Vik's book, Rolling With It, Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. Vik will discuss his life's journey overcoming a tragic physical accident at age 22 that left him paralyzed. Vik is sharing his emotional, spiritual thoughts on his approach to life. Vik has a social media presence on Facebook that gives all his current endeavors. So welcome, Vik, and please open your microphone.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank
Um,
you.
like you said, my name is Vic, um, and I've been on a pretty crazy journey. To start off, you didn't mention my book, so I kind of want to put that on the screen here. I'd like to see that. I was kind of cutting out a little bit, but it's called Rolling With It: Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. It came out in 2021 when I felt the need to really express my journey. And what happened actually back in 2006, it was July 29, 2006. I was 22 years old, and I had an accident where I fell off of a third floor apartment balcony after a night of partying, which you can only imagine is beyond traumatic and and disheartening. And it was a long journey for me to really go through that. The first 3 or 4 years, I struggled to accept the situation. The doctors told me that I only had a 5% chance of walking again, and was basically using a wheelchair ever since. And so there was a lot of things that I had to accommodate and assimilate into, was learning how to live life from a whole new perspective, my body functioning completely differently. And I couldn't accept it. I was 22 years old. I couldn't accept it. And I spent 3 or 4 years traveling around the world to try out all sorts of alternative treatments and therapies and all sorts of things. And nothing really worked. And there was a moment where I went to India in 2009, and I met with a guru. This lady is actually my dad's cousin. I had been, I'm an Indian, my background is Indian. And so I'd always I'd met gurus in the past, and she was a family relative, and I never really saw her in that light. But at this moment in 2009, I went to I went to see her, and she had all these followers. I mean, I'm talking like 50 to 100 followers every day hanging out outside of her house. At the time, it was like her birthday. And I finally had like a moment with her, and I was really struggling. I asked her, I was like, I've been, nothing is working. I don't know how to get out of this. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was all the things. And I asked her for advice, and she told me the simplest thing anyone I think could ever say in that situation. It was the most simplest thing, but so profound. And she said, if this is your life right now, how are you going to live it? And that wasn't even a thought in my head. It just once she said it, it just opened up like a whole new box, a whole new set of possibilities. And I went home starting to really think, okay, like how can I move forward like this? How can I move forward as a wheelchair user? And and I started thinking, well, I want to one, live independently. I was living with my parents at my parents' house at the time. And at the time, probably 25, 26 years old. So I really wanted to get out of that situation. And I wanted to get into wheelchair sports, and I wanted to get into a lot of these things. And so I ended up moving to Houston in August 2010. And my accident actually happened in Houston. I was going to school at the time. And in 2010, I decided to go back to school uh, for a graduate program. And so upon going over there, the first week I was driving, and I see this billboard off the highway. It said Abilities Expo. It was like this big expo happening at this big convention center that literally had everything disability, like from wheelchair manufacturers to medical supply people to all, innovative gadgets for to things for deaf people, for blind people. There was all sorts of stuff, and they had wheelchair sports. So I connected to the wheelchair sports people, got connected to play basketball, and that event was literally happening for the first time ever in Houston the weekend after I moved. And it's been going on every year since. So just the that moment, that it just made me feel like it was I was meant to be there. I was meant to be at the right place at the right time to be led to the things that I exactly wanted, which at that point was getting into wheelchair basketball. So I started doing that, and eventually got onto a team and played nationally. Um, Aside from that, I was figuring out other things that I could do from a wheelchair perspective, and I want another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get a job. So I I would always just think like because I was living in these on-campus apartments, and I would always just think it'd be really cool if I just got a job here because I could just literally wake up and then go to work. And literally, when I really had this thought, it was probably a couple weeks later, I got this email that there was a job opening for the building, and I already got really close with the director of the building. So so I met her and I was interested in this job. I got interviewed. I got the job. I was there. My job was literally to give tours to people. I was opening doors for people. I was taking people around. People would literally see me and be in a wheelchair and be like, "Oh, you're going to give us the tour?" And I'm like, "Yep, you better keep up because I'm hell on wheels, baby." So uh, I did that for a year, and it was just really interesting that these little things would happen. Like I would think about something that I wanted to do, and then certain things, a coincidence or whatever, happened that led me to the exact thing. And I would tell my mom this. I would explain to my mom, who just felt like once I accepted and moved forward with this life, these little magical things were happening. My mom, at the same time, was getting really deep into Dr. Wayne Dyer. You're not familiar with him. He died a few years ago, but he was a big speaker and author and talked a lot about manifestation and spirituality. And, we were really searching after my accident, especially, me and my mom. So my mom was really drawn to his teachings. And so when I would explain all these things that would happen to me, she was like, "Oh, Wayne Dyer calls them synchronicities." Like that's how I learned that word.
Okay,
And
okay.
and and so in September 2011, there was a Hay House conference actually in New York City, where Wayne Dyer was speaking at. And so my mom wanted to go. Her and her sisters decided to go. I ended up joining them. And so on the flight over there, my mom started saying over and over and over again, "I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer." And she just kept saying it over and over and over again. And my aunts are like, "Oh, what are you going to wear when you meet Wayne Dyer? And how are you, how are you going to talk to him? And how are you going to present yourself?" And just, they were just really painting the picture of this creation they wanted to create. And I thought they were crazy. I was literally looking at them like, what are y'all talking about? I wasn't so deep into this world yet. And so anyway, we went to the conference the next morning, got to our seats. My mom goes to the bathroom to touch up her makeup, and then she comes out, and Wayne Dyer is standing right there. And this is an event with like 2 to 3 thousand people in the audience. And so I really like the chances of this was just ridiculous to me. And she goes up to him and she started crying and she said, "Wayne Dyer, you've helped me so much. I've loved your teachings. And my son's here. My son had this accident and it was this whole thing." And she hugged him. He wiped her tears. He's like, "Oh, your son's here." He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go start my speech." And he asked her where she was sitting and stuff. So then she went back to her seat and she was frantic. She got back to the seat. She was like, "I just met Wayne Dyer." Like she was, like his biggest fan kind of thing. And then he starts off the speech and he starts off the entire thing saying, "So I just met this lady and her son had this accident. And you know, she came up to me and I had this conversation with her, and then he called my mom up on stage and gave her this purse that his daughter made as a gift. And he called me out to rate, and I raised my hand. And he's like, I really want you to pay attention to everything that I'm saying today. And the whole the whole speech was called Mastering the Art of Manifestation. I'm calling this talk Mastering the Art of Flow. It was really what I feel like the evolution of it. But that was the moment that really opened everything up for me. For to see my mom say that, to create that, to be called out in an event about 3,000 people and being singled out in that, in my mother's manifestation. What is possible? What can we create? How can I learn more about this? And this is what I want to dive deep into today. What do you think
Right.
about that, Mark, so far?
Very good. Everything in the right place at the right time, right? Um,
Right,
Manifesting. Uh,
right.
and is that visualization, or is it mantra, or
Well, I think it's a number of things. And that's what I really want to get into here. I've since Wayne Dyer, I've actually studied with a lady named Anita Murjani. She was a lady that uh, in 2006 she had cancer all over her body, literally spread all over her body, the size of lemons. And she went into a coma, and she eventually crossed over, and the doctors were like, she's done, like, let her go, like, it's time to say goodbyes. And she wrote a book. She wrote a book called Dying to Be Me, and Wayne Dyer actually had discovered her. And in this story, she crosses over, and she meets her dad, who had passed away previously, and her best friend, who also passed away from cancer. And they both gave her a message to that to teach the world to love themselves. And it was this idea that her whole life, Anita really lived her life as a people pleaser, as a doormat, with a lot of regret, and was holding on to that. And that was really what manifested the cancer. And when she realized that in the other realm, beyond our stories and stuff, we're actually loved unconditionally. She actually, and the message she got from her father and her best friend was that not only was she's going to come back to life, but she was going to miraculously heal. And that's exactly what happened. She woke up one day, and the doctors couldn't make sense of it. And she had this awareness and knowing that she was going to heal. And in 3 weeks, her tumors were gone. She had skin lesions in her body that were gone. And she ended up writing this book called Dying to Be Me, and now is a big teacher, speaker, and hosts workshops and stuff. So I studied with her for a bit, and she was a mentor for me for a number of years. Um, and I've also worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a really popular neuroscientist, holds 1,000 to 2,000 people meditation week-long workshops and really powerful things. And also studied more recently, the last couple of years, Donnie Epstein, which is Tony Robbins's like energy guy. This dude understands energy, feels, and a lot of things that really take what we're talking about here to like a whole other level. And so, based on these people that I've studied with and really made a lot of it my own, I've come into a framework really of 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 not only manifesting but transformation, really overcoming any challenge, tapping into anything you're trying to create. It comes down to these 5 steps. And the first step is acceptance. It's acceptance of where you are right now, without the need to change it, without the need to feel better, really being with whatever feeling, whatever experience you're dealing with, in full acceptance of what it is, regardless of how fearful it might be. The second step, once you really get to acceptance, is you really want to identify the fears that are coming up in you. What about this new situation or challenge or thing you're trying to create is scaring you? What is causing you to feel fear about? Then we get into releasing emotions. So that can be a myriad of things. That can be meditation. That can be journaling. It can be breath work. And breath work might be more the most potent way to release this energy. But when we talk about manifestation, a lot of people go into the affirmation space or the mantra space and start, trying to really create there. And what I've learned is that a lot of times when we do that, if we've had some traumas, emotional things that we're holding on to from the past, that counters that new belief that we're trying to create. If you don't release this old belief, if you don't release this old emotional energy, they're going to clash, and you're not going to get too far. So the real big piece here is to be able to really be able to clear the energy from the body, and you really know when you've cleared it when whatever it is that's triggering you, whatever that fear coming up or whatever situation we're talking about, when it's not there anymore, when it's truly neutralized, that's when you come into a place of clarity. And every time you release emotions, you come into this place of clarity. And most people are in their stories, right? When we're in the trigger, when we're in the emotion, we're in our stories of usually a victim like story of this happened to me 3 years ago, and since then life has been hard, and I'm trying to do whatever that is. Or this person said this about me, and I don't like it. We have all these programs and stories that we live by and define people by, and those are the emotions that are really stuck in our body, and we kind of like tap in to those beliefs, to those feelings that we have for others or situations, find them, release them. We get into this clarity, which is really our intuition. I call intuition the GPS of your soul. It's leading you to your highest happiness, to your best possibilities. So a lot of people try to manifest, and they're manifesting from lack. They're saying, "Oh, I only have this much money in the bank account, so I want to manifest $1 million," or I feel alone. I want a relationship. And when you're really coming from there, you're coming from lack, more so than not. And that lack is coming in that from that emotional energy. So when we release that and come into a clear space, then you really have that intuition telling you what that next step is, what that true calling is for you. And it may not be like the $1 million right now. It may be, creating, you know, becoming who you want to be, whether it's like a speaker, if you have a job and you're trying to do something that you truly love more, whether it's whatever your passion is, if it's cooking or, whatever it is, it may be that may be the first step before you get to that $1 million, right? If that makes sense. And then so that fourth step is really getting into clarity, and the last and fifth step is getting into elevated emotions. Once you've cleared the energy, once you have clarity, elevated emotions are things like feeling freedom, love, joy, but really in the space of not needing it to be in your external reality and it needing to actually have already happened, but being able to cultivate that emotion within you before it happens. And it's essentially, we're talking about creating a vision, right? We have a vision for where we're moving forward in life and what we're creating. And what would that feel like? And cultivating those emotions within us. And it's really these 5 steps that literally over and over and over again is the inner work for healing and manifestation. If that makes sense. And so I know you were saying, like, you're talking about mantras and things, and I kind of gave like this more elongated answer, but what do you take from it?
I didn't get the end of that. I think you broke up a little bit.
I said, I know you were saying about, like, when we talk about manifestation, talking about mantras and affirmations, things like that. But
Right.
in this answer that I kind of gave, what did you get?
Um, right. That I know the one thing we've all discussed here quite a bit is accepting the situation,
Mhm.
and then I want to say absorbing, but absorbing the situation as it is, and then you move on from that. But you have to accept things
Mhm.
as they are before you're going to really be able to move on. And then you use whatever skills and that you have available to you to move on from that. But the first
Correct.
thing is accepting, not to say, oh, why me, but accepting the situation. This is the situation. This is how it is. How do I move forward?
100%.
And we just look for tools to be able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, so all of this work and really this framework that I've created here led me to becoming a coach and a transformational coach in 2019. And it and it's funny, I talked about kind of the job thing as far as like learning where you're moving forward to. And I didn't really see this at first. I worked in real estate, and I worked, and then I was a high school teacher for 1 year, which is hilarious to me because I was never a good student, and I'm not a disciplinarian by any means. So those kids were walking all over me, but it really made me realize that it, I was a different type of teacher here. And what's interesting is, so 2019 I became a coach and I started seeing clients and I started really understanding people and emotional patterns and how to release this stuff and really connect through different ways. And in 2020, COVID hit and there was, so many things happening. And I was wondering, where I wanted to move from that point. I actually, in 2019, moved back to my parents' house after a number of years because it was kind of a reset with this new profession. And so, I was kind of figuring out where I wanted to move from there. And if you're familiar with vortexes, and you mentioned that I live in Sedona, Arizona, which is a powerful vortex area. Vortex is an area that has a strong electromagnetic field. It's when multiple meridian lines of the Earth, there's specific meridian lines of the Earth called ley lines. When they meet in a certain location, it creates this energy vortex. And when you live in a place like it really assists in healing and releasing emotions because we're electromagnetic energy. Our brain has an electromagnetic field, and our heart has like hundreds of times as the electromagnetic fields our brain. So our thoughts and emotions are created in the brain that are literally emitted out of us as feelings from our heart into our field, and which make up our vibration, which essentially is everything to do with manifestation and what you are attracting. And so in this space, the first vortex actually I visited was in Mount Shasta, and it's in Northern California. And I went for this metaphysical spiritual event, and there was this one guy there, Ryan, that kept showing up. Just kept showing up throughout the town. Like we'd go to lunch at different areas and whatever. This guy just kept coming up, and every time I hung out with him, it felt like there was like some sort of connection there. And so we exchanged numbers and stuff. And he lives in Sedona. And so after that event, I went back to Texas, and I honestly was in a space where I was thinking I was going to move to Austin. I really wanted to move somewhere that had a big spiritual type of community. And so Austin was just in Texas. It's close by. It's known to have a big community like that. So that's just what I had in my mind, right? And I got it like so August 2020. I come back home from going to Mount Shasta in October 2020. I get a download, and it just said, you've never been to Sedona, go check out Sedona. And it was just it was my intuition, it was this thought, but it's so easy to second guess your intuition. It's another skill to kind of build. And I completely second guessed it. So I was like, where did that come from? Who said that? And I completely let it go. And a month later, that I was having a conversation with this lady, and she I met her also in Mount Shasta. She's from San Francisco, and she's this like psychic type lady. And we were just having a conversation out of nowhere. And I didn't tell anybody this. Out of nowhere, she goes, "Are you thinking about going to Sedona? Because I'm getting if you're thinking about going, that you should go." And I was just like blown away. Like I didn't tell anybody that. So here's another synchronicity telling me to go to Sedona. So I said, "Okay, universe, if you want me to go to Sedona, send me one more sign." And a week later, my friend hits me up, unrelated to anything. And he goes, "Hey, man, I just came back from Sedona. You would love Sedona." So I got my third sign. In December 2020, I went over there for 4 days. I called up this guy, Ryan, that I met. And he introduced me to a lot of people. I saw the place. I was blown away. It's such a beautiful place. It's like living in a national park. You got these red rocks all around you. People are, super friendly and beautiful. And I was just so super drawn to it. And the day before I left Sedona, I went to go pick up Ryan for lunch. And and he gets into my car and he's super upset. He's super pissed, right? He's like, man, the guy that's living with me right now, he hasn't been paying bills. And like, I just had to kick him out. Like literally in that moment, he kicked him out of living with him. And so we had lunch, and then the next day I went back home, and all I can think about is, I need to go back to Sedona. I need to go back to Sedona. I just felt super strong. So I called Ryan. I was like, tell me more about that spot that guy moved out of. And he was living in a townhouse. And he said, well, it's on the bottom floor. It's a studio, and it's got a big bathroom. It's got a closet with a low hanging rack. And so it was like perfect for me in a wheelchair, you know? And so literally 3 weeks later, I moved there and I lived there for a year in 2021. Ended up going back to Texas for a year and a half for some other stuff. And actually during that time, I actually started doing my own live events and a lot of things like in Texas. It's just interesting. It's none of this was necessarily my call. It's just what the flow was. And then this past last June, I felt the call again to go back to Sedona, and I moved back to Sedona, and that's why I'm back in Sedona. So just to kind of show you a bit of a framework of like how this works sometimes, because we're manifesting, and I wanted to manifest a spiritual community to live in, and I was focused on Austin, and it turned into this whole other thing, And so, but I think it has everything to do with the work we do, and the emotions that we release, and just connecting to ourselves and just what we're here to create in the world. And as we do that, we get these signs and synchronicities and these guidances to go wherever you need to go. And actually, with all of this, the manifestation, the live events I've been doing, the time I've spent in Sedona, I'm literally have just created my first ever Sedona retreat. It's called the Ultimate Sedona Retreat. It's happening May 8th to 12th. And it's just incorporates a lot of people in Sedona. Like you see a lot of crazy stuff out there. I have a UFO tour with this UFO guide who takes you out, sees the skies. We have a stargazing tour. We have vortex hikes. It's just all these things that I've been able to implement only because I was led to be in the area and connect to the right people. And it's when you're in this kind of journey, it's more than you know.
Right. And I just ahead of this, I was looking at your Facebook page and I saw that you had that event coming up, and you have a St. Patrick's Day event coming up.
Right.
And a number of years ago, a group of us went to Chile, and in the Chilean desert, there's also essentially a vortex,
Mm.
which presents a lot of UFO information and things of that nature. We unfortunately we didn't run into any of those special events, but but it was very interesting anyway. Um, so you
Yeah.
do this with small groups or?
The retreat, or well, I can kind of explain the events a bit, but like yeah, so I'm living in Sedona, Arizona, but in this current moment I am in Texas. And basically I come here every quarter to do events, and there are manifestation events, and it goes over my 5 steps here that I'm talking about: acceptance, identifying the fears, releasing the emotions, connecting to clarity, and feeling those elevated emotions. And I take people on a journey where not only do I share some of these stories and concepts and things, but there's journaling, there's questions that to really connect with what are things that I'm still engaging in that don't serve me anymore. What really getting clear about those emotional blocks and the limited beliefs that we're holding. And then I take people through a breathwork practice to really release that energy. And then we do, and then I always have a meal there. So there's some time we take a break and we connect and we have meals and we share. And then the second part really is about getting into that clarity, setting intentions and a vision for what you're creating. and we do fun stuff. They're really fun, and a lot of people get a lot of things from them. And so I have this one coming up on Sunday, St. Patty's Day, March 17th, which is, interesting. I've never done anything on St. Patty's Day, and I know it's a common holiday to get out there and drink your guts out and all that kind of stuff. But we're trying to bring in some spirituality and some more connection here and it's called Springing into Luck, really going with the St. Patty's Day theme and the leprechaun four-leaf clover vibe. And the idea really behind it is does luck happen by chance,
Right.
or do we actually create our own, and how to do that? And then the retreat is, these events are really like about 3 to 4 hours. um and the retreat's a 4-day event situation where it's just going to have everything, from not only these processes and healings and breath work and sound healing and meditations and different things we're doing in that space, but really also connecting to the land of Sedona, and the healing of Sedona, and people who really understand the land and take you on a journey on it. So um, there's a lot happening in my corner.
Great. It's great. It sounds interesting. You know, hopefully we can look into something like that for the future in terms of people.
Yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah.
this is this is only my first retreat, and the first one I've been able to put together. And I definitely feel like once this one is going, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 a year, because for whatever reason, I think there's a part of my purpose to bring people to Sedona to really experience the healing that Sedona has. And I will express that it's not an easy place to live when you live in a vortex. It brings up emotions on the regular, and in a way, I think the first year I lived there, it was a little overwhelming. And I maybe have been more prepared coming into it now. Um, but there's been all sorts of stuff that have come from these events. I've had people manifest, all sorts of clients. Something we actually do actually in the event is I tell people to create an object or a symbol or an animal or like something fun and something that you're not really attached to manifest. And and things like, I wonder if I can actually just like show it to you. uh if I could show you some pictures that come from this event, would that be cool?
Yeah, if you can try that.
Yeah, let's see. I just need to get permission to share my screen.
Okay. Ernie, I'm not quite sure what we need to do here, Vic. Um,
All right, let me see. Oh, yeah, we're good.
okay.
All right, so let me see if I can go here real quick. I'm gonna show this to you. I'm gonna just go to my Instagram to you guys so you can see that. But check this out. So so in these events, we're talking about what people. So I tell people to draw an object, right? We draw an object that we want to manifest into our reality, right? And this is really, I mean, because when we're like, as he talked about, we have like limited beliefs and things that are against the things we're trying to create. They're harder to manifest. When we do things like these little objects and stuff, we don't have as much emotional weight on it. So it's easier for us to notice and come into our lives. And so this lady drew a flower, and so then she sees this somewhere that represented the flower, and then the next day she sees this print on a sheet or a dress or something, right? And so that's one example. Another one, this dude drew a spiral, right? And then he's on social media and then he sees this and he sees the spiral ring, right? And then let's see, we have this dude drew a cow, right? I don't know if you're ready for this one, Mark. This one's a big one, all right? He drew a cow, and then boom, she's a cow in the sky. Like flying over the moon, you know? And then this lady was actually really interesting. She said, when you told us to give us the exercise, I I I thought of a yellow snake, but then I thought that was like too hard for the universe, you know? So I was like, maybe I'll do a bird or something. So then so then the next day, she goes to her friend's house, and her friend's son has a yellow snake toy. And then the next day, another friend sent a picture of her son with an actual yellow snake around his neck, right? And they just came to her. So it's this idea that we really like, where our attention goes, energy flows. And when we put things out there and really understand that we can create our reality, and these fun little activities, just creating an object, there's a whole thing to it. We do bring a visualization and a meditation to it and feel what it would feel like when our object kind of comes in. That's really the formula here. I'm just revealing it to you. But after doing that, these things come up, and it just shows people that we really are powerful creators in our lives. If it just because something is not happening in your life right now, there's something to discover there, to dive into, whether what traumas are there, what emotional beliefs or suppressed emotions are you holding on in those situations, and really connecting to that. And I teach people some pretty next level ways at the end of the day, because there is meditation and there is breath work and there's a lot of things, but to the next real level, I think, is being able to really find exactly where these emotions are in our body. And there's multiple ways to do that, but it's really building an awareness, because most people are kind of cut off from, like, we're really heady, and we're just stuck in the thoughts kind of over and over again, and jumping from one situation to another to another. And when if that is you and you feel that, that means you're not present. And it's about really learning to ground yourself and come into the body to be able to release this stuff. And the more we release that, the more we're going to come into clarity, and the more you're going to see more things start popping into your lives. That story I told in the beginning here, the Wayne Dyer story, something kind of interesting. In September 2022, I went to a fall equinox event in Austin, and it was this little ceremony thing. And after that, I met this guy, and he was kind of new to his like spiritual journey. So he came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, how long have you been on your spiritual journey?" And I was like, "How much time you got?" And and so I told him that story. I told him, the way my mom manifested Wayne Dyer and all this stuff, and he was blown away. And he was just like, "Wow, that's unbelievable." He's like, "Man, I wish I had experiences like that." And I was like, "Oh, well, maybe after you said that, maybe you will." And and so we exchanged info, and that was about it. 2 days later, all right, 2 days later, I go to a comedy show with this girl, unrelated to anything, right? And we're just hanging out, and you're at a comedy club, and it's like these small, you're sitting at these like small round tables, right? Like it's really, these tables are like big enough for like two people.
Right.
But right before the show started, the ushers come, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to put two people at your table because they oversold." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like hanging out with this girl and stuff, like you're just going to bring these two people in. These two guys walk over. One of the guys is the same dude from 2 days before, and like it's just unbelievable. So I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Um, is there like a point in time that we need to be just ready to accept that? Because I go back to when you were talking about you were teaching high school, and I've had the discussion like that before with people that why don't we teach a lot of this stuff to younger people, younger kids, because it's life fulfilling. Uh, but on the other hand, I think that maybe they're just not ready for it. Maybe they're not accepting of it. We need to be at a point in our lives where we're accepting of these gifts and these ideas. Um, like
Yeah, I
this,
mean,
like that person said, I wish I would have these types of things. Well,
right.
he had to be at that point to accept that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's things that, parameters or things that we can put at if if teachers were more awake, if teachers had an understanding of this, if the school system felt the necessity to really understand how to release emotions, maybe not even for manifestation purposes, but at the very least to just be able to process emotions. Manifestation is just a side effect of that in itself.
Right.
And so, really being able to do that, I think is important. So, I don't know. I think the kids are ready. I think the kids are ready. They just need to be guided and spoken to by people that know about this.
Yeah, because they have a lot of energy. Maybe just the direction would help them out. But I think culturally, from what I see, all the school systems and things, they want to do away with quote unquote wokeness. And it's not even as far as, their woke idea of wokeness is not even this far.
No, it's not.
They want to reel it back to 1950, basically, type thing.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, go ahead.
now, so it's sort of, we talk often here about our culture has advanced and advanced, but more recently the culture seems to be receding. A lot of those advancements.
Well, I think since 2020 and COVID and everything that's really kind of hit the world, there's been a lot of fear, right? And even with the wars and everything kind of going on, there's always something that negative to talk about. There's always something to be afraid of. And when we're more focused on kind of those stories and timelines, it's really not about what you can create. It's not about freedom. It's not about knowing that you can do all this. It's a time of stress, and we got to protect and take care, and it's just a completely different energy, and so I think when things like that come up, it's natural for us to get into stress and to struggle. And really, scientists say that we live 70% of our lives in stress. And really think about that. It's really interesting because stress is if we go back into like caveman times, when they felt fear and stress, it was like a danger of like a lion or a tiger or something coming to attack them, and so they were either running, fighting, or hiding to save themselves. And so when you're nowadays, it's like your boss and your employee and your family and your mother-in-law and like all these other things that are causing you those stress responses. And the thing about stress is when we're in stress, we're living in emergency mode, you know? And I was talking about our energy field earlier. When we're in stress, our energy field shrinks. And our thought, we don't work right, our brain doesn't work right, our heart doesn't work right. It's not pumping at the right rhythms for us to digest to pump the blood and digest our food, because it's siphoning energy out to our arms and legs because our body thinks it needs to run, fight, or hide 70% of the time. And to do that. And the result of that, unfortunately, is body breakdown and disease and a lot of different things that people use because we've not ever learned to process our emotions and to be able to live presently and create from this place, right? At least even know we have that level of power. And so, when we talk about these things and everyone kind of focused on it, this is really the piece here that we're missing as far as being able to really thrive as a species, really, because we're so caught up in all these different stories and struggles, and we create our world. There's a saying, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are, right? And everything is through your own filter, through your own perspective, your thoughts, your beliefs, what you've been through. We have a lens and a definition for so many things that are super unique to us. And when you know that, then it really comes into understanding, are you seeing the world from ego, or are you seeing the world from your soul? Because from ego, we're coming from our identity and our beliefs and whatever people have told us, whatever we believe. Our roles, the roles are like one of the biggest things. The roles, if we think if we're defined by being a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, an employee, a boss, whatever it is, like you're putting yourself in a box, and and a lot of us get caught up in that every time we feel depleted in any situation, we're most likely identified in some sort of role we're trying to fulfill. And the idea is that in each of these roles, that we want to fuel it with soul, with our essence, with this other kind of go outside of the box with how it's like the difference from like living from your truth and shitting all over yourself, right? When I say shitting all over yourself, it's like, I should do this. I should do this because this is what it means to be this person or whatever that is. The more we're in that frame of mind, you're depleting energy, you're stressed, you're all those things. The more we can elevate ourselves and come into an openness and release those beliefs and emotions, come into that clarity. That's when you're really living from a higher truth and a place of manifestation because you're expanded, you're open. And another thing here, we're talking about following our intuition when we're living from our soul. And your intuition, it's only giving you the next step most of the time. It's not giving you the whole picture. So that also keeps people stuck in certain situations because usually we're not trained to really follow this kind of trajectory because it's constant growth. Your intuition's always leading you to something that's growing you, that's fulfilling you, that's making you more. And it's about knowing that if you're having an intuitive voice, intuitive message to go somewhere, to do something, to follow that beyond the fears, to jump into that because there's something there for you. Just how I jumped into Sedona, you know, and not a lot of people would do that quickly. But it's kind of like those examples of what it means to really live on this soul journey and to live in the flow because it's all of these things. It's really at the end of the day being able to identify when you've been triggered because our triggers are the automatic subconscious reactions to an external stimulus, an external event. And so when the trigger comes up and we start getting upset or angry or whatever it is, road rage, whatever it is for you, you're looking at the situation thinking that the current situation is the problem, right? And so we blame the situation or the person that's currently causing us to feel that way. When in actuality, the only reason why you have a trigger is because something happened in your past that you did not fully process. And the current situation is similar to the previous situation. And it brings up this thinking. And so when we can really identify that, because that's the skill to identify the fears, to be able to accept and come in to identify the fears coming up in you, when we can kind of look at that and see it from a kind of a bird's eye view that this trigger is happening and I can see the story unfolding in me, but I'm observing it. From there, is really where you can release those emotions. But it's about being able to catch when we're in a trigger, because every time you release an emotion, you're in presence. If you're triggered, you're in past or worrying about the future. So I don't know. I feel like I went into like a whole
No,
spiel there.
no, I'm just thinking, do you think we can develop these skills on our own, or do we really need to have a teacher or somebody to lead us a little along the way?
Personally, I think a teacher is like super helpful. I've worked with a number of people myself to kind of get to where I am. And I know that a lot of the things I learn and teach, I would not be able to if I didn't work with others. I'm not saying it's impossible to do this on your own to build those
Mhm.
skills, but we have a lot of blind spots. We just do. I mean, I have blind spots for myself. We all have blind spots that we can't kind of see. And usually when somebody who is further along than you in their journey that have an understanding of certain things more than you do and can talk to you and kind of pinpoint these different things and teach you and what is a trigger and how to identify all these little things and to release them. I think it's game changing. I think it's quicker. It's not that you can't do it on your own, and maybe if you're an anomaly, you might be, kind of better than the rest in a way that you tap into it that well. But there's a lot of nuance in this, and usually someone that's been in this longer than you will be able to identify those nuances that you wouldn't be able to do on your own.
Right. Um, would we learn some of this from your book when it says lessons learned while sitting down?
Absolutely. That whole framework that I talk about, acceptance, identifying fears, releasing emotions, clarity, and feeling elevated emotions are all in the book. Some of the stories I said today, and many of the stories I haven't said today, are in the book. And my book is super vulnerable. It really takes you into my journey, and what, especially in the beginning when it was such a struggle for me, what all the thoughts and all the things I was thinking, and how I was able to take such a depressed, anxious, guilt-filled situation with um where I am now, which is really seeing everything as a gift, and believing in the possibilities, and following the callings. Wayne Dyer, when I met him, um, we met him backstage actually at that event, and he told me, like, the first thing he told me was like, "This is the best thing that ever happened to you." And I was like, "What are you talking about, man?" I couldn't accept it in that moment. I was like, "Shut up." And it took me a while, but like now, like, if this didn't happen, I don't think I would have been as curious. I don't think I would walk this path. I don't think it would. There's, not to the level I have been, because this change in my life caused me to rethink everything, and really want to understand reality and what this thing is that we do here, and wake up every day and live it, like, and to understand what is the best influence I can have on this for my life. Yeah.
What does the future hold? What are your plans going forward?
The future is the future is feels magical. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of things happening. I want to do more. I want to do my events in more places. I want to be able to really put myself out there on another level. Obviously, the Sedona retreats are going to be a staple. If you've ever wanted to come to Sedona, wanted to experience it, heard of it, or even if you have experienced it, but not really experienced all the things you wanted to, this retreat I really feel is like for that. It's really incorporating everything that Sedona has to offer to the best I can in 4 days.
Okay.
But but it really is jam packed with so much, and my goal here in the future is to really keep creating quality events, to keep working with people, and showing them the way for whoever's called to work with me, and there's a lot here, and we're talking about a lot of conceptual things and stories things on the stuff, but I really work with some very next level techniques that most of they say you got to feel it to heal it, and back in 2020, I think it was, I got rejected by this girl, and it was like this whole, like, I felt the emotion, like I was aware, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna feel this. This is something in me. I'm gonna heal this, and I sat with this emotion, and I allowed myself to sit and feel it, and it probably took me like 2 weeks, honestly, to like sit and like unravel this thing and move through. And at the end of the day, it was my own stuff that we reject. Everything's a reflection of you. I was rejecting myself in places in my life that I had to be aware of. But it took me 2 weeks, and I studied with some people after that really taught me some next level ways of releasing emotions, like honestly, like this. And now it just takes minutes or hours, maximum, to really let go of the stuff. And so I invite anyone that'd be interested to understand this information, to want to, I do free 45-minute calls, to if anyone wants to present their situation to me. I teach you some of these techniques and how to move through in real time, and it's just a game changer when you know some of the next level stuff. You don't have to stay in your stories and emotions as long as most people do. We can shift things rather quickly when you know how, and that's what I really want to bring into the world.
Right, because I'm thinking, Wayne Dyer, it seems like every 3 to 5 years, Wayne Dyer had a new approach, or he had a new book, and he was just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. Um,
Right.
and it certainly helped a lot of people. Um,
Mhm.
and kind of look forward for you to go forward and help a lot of people.
Yeah, and this is my first book. I hope to write more books, and I think Wayne Dyer had something like 30 some books out there or something like that. So, we'll see. I'm on my way. Definitely, whoever's watching this, you're interested in my story. If any of the information I'm talking about calls to you, grab this book. It's on Amazon. Rolling with It: Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. It's I'll say the biggest info I get from it is that not only is it a tearjerker, it's funny. It takes you through every possible human emotion that you can experience, and it's real, it's raw, and it's life changing in a lot of ways.
Okay. Um, did you say you did a comedy show?
I I used to do comedy.
Okay.
I was a comedian for a couple of years in Houston. I lived in Houston for like 12 years. And it was around like 2013, 2014, and 2016. And I would always say like I do sit down, not stand up, right? Because I'm a
Right.
I'm a wheelchair user. But yeah, comedy is definitely in my repertoire, and I had a lot of fun with that. But it's so interesting. Like life is so funny to me because back then I was starting with comedy, and I was also starting with inspirational speaking in different environments. And at the time they were like separate, and then they started like morphing together and just being it all complements each other. And now, you kind of 10 years since I was doing that stuff, I'm seeing in these events like I'm doing all of those things and more, and it's
Okay.
just, all the you just never know. Even the teacher job I had like plays such a role in some of the skills I developed there in the work I do with people. So I think it's really interesting the roads that we go on and the experiences and the things that we're led to and how it just unfolds when we're really just following the road here, following the breadcrumbs, I like to say.
Right. You said you do some private phone sessions with people? Is that what you said?
I do Zoom calls. Yeah, I
Okay.
do. They're about 90-minute sessions. I I basically, I have conversations with people and just based on whatever they're expressing and their complaints, their emotions, their struggles. I teach them these techniques to find the emotions in the body, to clear them, to shift things energetically. And we do that for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And then I always end the session with like a 15-20 minute guided meditation. And actually, if you guys ever, my meditations actually have a lot of different um, techniques and different things in there that they're not very long. They're 15 to 20 minutes long, but they are very potent and they get you into a space based on using your awareness in different ways. And if you check out my website, rollingwithvik.com, that's rollingwithvik.com, you can actually sign up for a free gratitude meditation that's on there and get a taste of it. Um, but yeah, I end them with like I end the session about 15-20 minutes. Usually clients work with me for anywhere from like 4 to 6 sessions, sometimes longer, and it's quite game changing. I mean, I've had people come to me where they have uh, a lot of stuff they're holding from past relationships. They're trying to they want a new relationship, but they want the right relationship. But they're having all this baggage holding from their past relationships. I just had this guy recently, we worked together for 4 sessions and we went in and we cleared a bunch of those emotions that he was holding on to from his other relationships. And literally 3 weeks later, he 3 weeks after our last session, after really clearing a lot of that stuff, he's met the woman of his dreams, you know, and literally messaged me last week about it. Super grateful for the work we did. I've had multiple women with sexual abuse that have come to me, and it's interesting because all the time you always notice with people who said, "Well, I've never really worked with men that have had sexual abuse, but women who weren't able to speak up," and I imagine it's probably the same. They have energy stuck in the throat a lot of times because they were stuck in a situation where they couldn't express. And so we got to find that energy and release it. I just had this girl who she was held back in her life a lot. There were so many things she wanted to do, and every time she would step forward, she would have this deep fear and didn't want to express. And we only did one session. I knew exactly what to do. We went in there, we cleared it. I just saw her on Saturday, and she was like, "Vic, there's so many things happening. I'm stepping out. I'm speaking in ways that I never spoke before, all from one session, from clearing the energy." So we really get to the source, really get to the stuff. A lot of people, and there's so many coaches out there. There's so many modalities. There's so many different things that you can try. All of them is somewhat is effective. Personally, for me, just been on the journey I've been on, and the people I've had the privilege of learning from, has put me in a place to where I just really understand how to get to the depth of it and release it. And it's truly game changing, and it doesn't have to be a long time.
Good. Well, we have a number of people on the phone. I don't know if we have any questions for Vic. Buddy? No, any questions popping up? But this Ernie records this session, and this will be put on Facebook, so it'll be available. I'm not sure what else you want to comment on.
Adriana, do you have a question?
Yes.
Go for it.
I've been processing my question. Thank you, Vic, for being with us today. It's amazing all the journal you've been living.
Thank you.
Just to be in this moment here with us to deliver it to us, this message. It's
Right.
really very important to us to understand where are we going. And that's my question is, are you think in one point before this happened to you, did you manifest you want to be a leader or want to be a person who can deliver good energy to another ones, help others?
You're saying before my accident that I have an intention for that. I think I had an intention that I think since I was a kid, anytime that I saw people upset or anything like that, I always wanted to cheer them up. So from a very young age, I was always like joking around and trying to be fun. And I think as I grew older, before my accident, I was always that person. And I was in my early 20s, I partied a lot, but it was also my way of just wanting to have fun and enjoy with people. So I think in a way you're onto something there, because I didn't have this full intention of what this trajectory that's happened, but I really did want to help others and show others a way that life can be lived better and less seriously, positively, for sure.
Yes, it's like you say, interesting the way you use right now everything what happened, the process to your learning experience, and now you are ready to open up and give to us all what you've been learning now. And my another thing is, if is anybody stuck in life right now, what will be your message for them?
My message, if you're stuck in life right now, this is my message. My message is that every series of thoughts that you have is based on a bandwidth of frequency, right? You are in a certain emotional state. You are in a certain thing. Yes, there may be things that have happened outside of you that have caused you to be a certain way. But what I want you to understand is that it's a frequency, that the thoughts you are having are one level of emotion, and that it just takes a switch, a switch to a higher emotion to have a whole other set of thoughts. And the only reason why you feel that way is because you don't know how to get there. And that really, the basis of it, I can say, like, accept the situation, go through the process, but on a bigger level, it's really just understanding that there's a ladder here of emotions, of levels that we can tap into, and we all have access to that. And so whatever state you're in, you can shift that from what we're saying. And it's just about learning how. That's all.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you has a lot to give. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
here
you
for
for
sure.
all what you're doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Okay. Any other thoughts or ideas, Vic? I think, okay, you've got things scheduled for Sedona. You get things scheduled for the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And any long-term plans? Anything scheduled long-term?
Kind of really the retreat, which is a couple months away. It's May 8th to 12th. That's the most long-term thing I have planned right now, but there's definitely going to be more things that that I'll be working on. I think once this retreat is set, there'll be more dates and the future dates and stuff that I have planned. So the short term is leading to the long term, I guess you could say. There's also a second book in my mind that I'm getting ready to start and get the second part of my journey out there. So stay tuned for that here. Hopefully in the next 6 months to 6 to 8 months, we'll have that out there.
Do we just keep track of you on Facebook, or there's other?
Yes, follow me on Facebook, Instagram. Those really are the best ways. YouTube even. I'm kind of taking a break a little bit from YouTube, but I'm going to do more long form videos here pretty soon. So I would just follow me on social media and YouTube. All the information you need is going to be over there. And feel free to message me. I'm really good about connecting with people and all of that. So if you DM me, you'll talk to me, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
So for our listening people, are there any other questions for? See anybody coming forth? All right, Vic, thank you very much. It's been very informative, very entertaining. Wish you the best. And actually, I'm going to get you a book from Amazon so I can go through it and see.
Awesome.
And so thank you very much. I think it was a great presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hold on. I think I have Lucia.
You got a question, Lucia? You just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah. How do I put her on?
Just got to unmute herself.
Can you unmute that, Lucia?
Oh,
Here.
Thank you for everything. My English is terrible, but I was trying to get your all information. And thank you so much for sharing with us your experiences. For us, is very important because we are in this way, and everything is very important for us.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your presence.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Lucia. Okay. Anybody else? No. All right. Well, thank you, Vic. And thank you to everybody that's been listening today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a good one, y'all.